on, Glenn. In its housing markets, I call it corruption.
Order. The Honourable Anne Tully.
Mr Speaker, the leadership contest continues. I'm looking forward to it. Mr Speaker, there is no doubt that this country's economy is in far better shape today than it was when we took office in 2008. What did we inherit? Well, we inherited inflation running at 5.1%. We inherited mortgage interest rates at 10.5%, food prices that had risen by 11%, an economy going backwards, and Treasury forecasts of deficits as far as the eye could see. I'm proud to have been part of a government, to have worked with a Prime Minister and a Minister of Finance that have turned that around, despite the constant and continual financial chaos and uncertainty in Europe and the United States, despite 3 major earthquakes in Christchurch, our second largest city. We have done this despite the failure of innumerable finance companies with the savings and investments of thousands of New Zealanders going with them, and despite being left with enormous gaping holes in the budgets from the previous government. $500 million in tertiary education alone of unfunded promises. So a government that went out and promised everything and then didn't put any money in the budget. So despite all of that, this John Key-led government has turned that around, and I'm proud to be part of a government that has done that. This government, as I said earlier in question time, has focused particularly on young people, because as a result of the difficult economic times, too many of them have found that either they've been put out of work or there hasn't been work for them. But last year, we heard from the Minister of Social Development, last year, at the beginning of last year, 23,500 young people on the unemployment benefit. Now we're down to just under 16,000. Job Ops has been a huge success for young people. 89% of those who've completed that have gone off the benefit. And 2,800 young people have been prepared, ready for work through the limited service volunteer. Fantastic work that this government has done focused on young people. I'm proud to be part of a government that has put money into making educational opportunities available for young New Zealanders. 10,000 places under the wider youth guarantee next year for young people. Now, I just want to remind this House that the Labor government back in 2003 said that their budget contained a comprehensive package of initiatives to ensure that all 15 to 19-year-olds were involved in education, training or work or other options by 2007. Who said that? The Prime Minister, Helen Clark, said that. Actually, a bit like housing in Tamaki, they promised it again in 2004 and in 2005 and in 2006 and in 2007, and we have delivered it, actually. This government, in tough economic times, is starting to deliver that for young people. 10,000 places next year, 12,500 places by 2014. We have opened already 8 trades academies and promised another 13. Possibly 13 more will open at the beginning of next year. We've increased over 3 years, they say. Yep, over 3 years we did it. They had 9 years, and what did they do? They sat back and watched while young people continued to leave school unable to read and write and do maths. And what is the common denominator for those young people who are out there on the dole? They can't read, they can't write. I was talking to an employer who had to put off a guy from his apprenticeship because they couldn't trust him to take a message on the telephone because he couldn't write. And that kid went through schooling under a Labor government that continues to argue against setting national standards in primary and intermediate schools that set benchmarks so we can monitor that our young people are learning to read and write and do maths. And I know Trevor Mallard wanted to do it and the union stopped him. Well, they're not stopping this government.
The Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr Speaker, it's hard to tell who's a bigger stranger to the truth,